We need to capture the data that's being used when educating and creating strategies for change. Without data, how do we prove our case? How do we know what needs to change? The Women's Funding Alliance seized the moment to use research as a tool to map approaches for increasing their grant making and getting million-dollar donors. I'd like LeAnne Moss to share how research has helped her fund to increase its investment, influence, and impact.
As the leading women's fund in Washington State, we know that we have a huge responsibility to build the equity and opportunity for women and girls in our region. And while Washington might be perceived as liberal, and if you're a Democrat in Seattle, you feel like you're part of one big happy family, like all families, we have issues. In fact, our research showed that Washington State ranks 42nd out of 50 in the gender wage gap. So we have the opportunity to seize the moment and to seize the moment after that to address that issue. Now, we've been funding for nearly 3 decades. In the last 10 years, we've had the greatest growth. And in the last 3 years alone, our granting has increased by 30%. Last year, we gave out $540,000 that supported 170,000 women and girls in our region. As Chris mentioned, we published a study on the status of women and girls in our state, which 2 other funders are using to guide their grant making. And this funding, or this research, has shaped our strategy, our focus area on economic security and economic justice. And we're planning to fund that area, to put half of our granting in that area over the next 5 years. We received 3 gifts of $1 million from 3 donors last year, the first we've ever received of that size, thanks to the Women Moving Millions campaign. We've instituted Making the Case to track and communicate our impact. We've increased our visibility as a result of our research and as a result of the $1 million donors by being featured in a local magazine, publishing our first op-ed, securing radio spots, and last year we received Seattle's Outstanding Philanthropic Organization Award. I think the first for a women's fund in our area. And we are supporting local efforts to address child prostitution. And we're not resting on our laurels. We're building our donor base with the ambitious goal of eventually granting $1 million a year and being able to sustain it. And that money will help us develop a large multi-year granting pool that will help our grantee partners maintain their gains. We're also helping them connect with each other to look for ways to partner on advocacy and policy reform. And finally, we're amplifying our voice and creating partnerships with groups like the Workforce Development Council and a collaborative fund of donors that are working on community education opportunities for low-income adults. One of the highlights of this year was seeing how some of our grantee partners who were doing economic justice work, but not necessarily understanding the gender lens, finally got it. I don't know how many of you experienced this, but here's a quote from one of our grantee partners. We've always worked with an implicit understanding about the disproportionate effects of poverty on women. However, our work with the Women's Funding Alliance has helped us understand the importance of calling out this inequity through our public education efforts, our organizing campaigns, and our work with lawmakers. We are now being more intentional about raising up women's voices and ensuring that women are impacted by all of our leadership development, trainings, and outreach efforts. And just in closing, when I thought about the theme of this conference, I looked up the word seize the other day, and it said, to take hold of quickly and firmly, take advantage of something such as change, eagerly and immediately. Well, that is certainly the spirit of Chris Grumm, and that is the spirit with which we do our work at the Women's Funding Alliance, and it's because of the support and learning from the Women's Funding Network and all of you, our sister funds, that we're able to do this work. So thank you.
The Women's Funding Alliance research pointed out the pivotal role economic security plays in the nexus of women's human security in their region.